me, my from Texas. We got Brother Shawnee and Brother Dante here. Thank you again for joining us in another episode of the One on One Sports Show. This is again NBA season, NBA trades going on. We just came out the draft and whatnot, so a lot going on. But again, we thank you for being with us. If you see at the bottom of the screen, you'll see our Cash App. Certainly, definitely if you would like to contribute to us, we appreciate anything that you give us. But more importantly, we ask that you support the network. So again, subscribe to the network, consider becoming a member of the network, and certainly allow us to, continue to bring you content 7 days a week here on the BMU network. So with that, gentlemen, just want to go around the room. How you guys doing?
Everything
What's
good
going
on
on,
my
Trey?
side. I'm over here got this 30 for 30 in the background playing about the McGuire and Sosa race going on back there. Basically,
Yeah.
save baseball.
Oh, I mean, listen, short week, 4th of July tomorrow. It's time, summertime, man. I'm on my secondary device today. So, can y'all hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
we hear
You
you.
Okay,
good?
okay. Yeah, I'm excited, man. Summer sports is in full stride. I'm even excited to start seeing the Babe Ruth base, the what is it, the Little League World Series start kicking
Yeah,
off,
Oh
man.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
excited
yeah.
about that, man. So,
Yeah, and the
yeah.
Olympics
That's
starts later this month also. So again, we're gonna, we're gonna for a couple of these shows, we're definitely gonna, highlight some of the Olympic coverage that goes on because that's something it's weird with the Olympics. There's sports that I will not follow at all, but for some reason I get into it, especially Winter Olympics. I'll get into the curling, I'll get into the luge. You'll never find me watching those sports, but again, Team USA versus Team Canada for the gold. There's like nothing like it. I mean, that's like the ultimate in terms of the winter games and whatnot. So yeah, so I get into it, when all that stuff's on the line. But definitely, yeah, we'll get a chance as the opening ceremonies starting up soon. That we'll add that to our July coverage, and then in August, what that means, we're back in football season. So a lot to cover. But I guess the place to start is the obvious place, the unfortunate place that I never want to start with. Obviously, we had arguably the most boring NBA draft in NBA history last week. I mean, think about it. I mean, the top 10 players, did anybody really know who these guys were? I mean, it was so such a bad job marketing these players. There was no anticipation. I mean, last year might have been the last year where you had Wimby coming out because again they were following him for months. He was projected to go number one. It was just a matter of who was going to get him. You look forward to the lottery to see who was going to nab him number one. This year, unfortunately, it was clouded by one story that took all the oxygen out of the room, and that Bronny James is a Los Angeles Laker. And I'll maybe you just start with the Laker fan. I'll I'll let you start with him where you want to take it from there. What else can I say about this?
Well,
So
oh, okay. All right. So I'm putting for right now, I'm gonna put the Laker hat on because if I'm gonna be critical, I'm gonna wear the hat. And so, all right, Rich Paul saying the things and people leaking it about he wanted it and forced, steering his direction to go anyway. Like I've mentioned it before, players do this all the time where it's like, hey, I don't want to get drafted. I'm because you got a team that you're gonna go to. You've seen their depth chart, so it's like, hey, I'm gonna go there instead of going to a team where it's field. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. But steering your way and saying, oh, I want a guaranteed contract. That's cool that you're getting a guaranteed contract. That's amazing that you've had a good enough agent to do that, and obviously the father connection. But let's be real. He's going to spend more games with the South Bay Lakers than the Los Angeles Lakers. So it's just like we're really talking. And so when people said it, Les, you have every right to be mad about the nepotism if you feel that way. Cool. But just realize you're arguing about a second round pick. The contracts are not guaranteed. There are second round picks that are like basically what summer league is. It's a lot of guys that might have been second round picks or maybe they were drafted higher. They're trying to get back into the league. They've gone overseas. So we've made a lot of talk because this is LeBron's son. And it annoyed me, but it's like I understand it. I knew what's going to happen. I kind of ignored it for the most part. I like my friends were saying, hey, he has this. I was like, look, I'll check him out in summer league, but other than that, I don't watch the South Bay Lakers. I just don't. So I
can
felt
you
like a
can
lot
you
of it
can you even what do you is there a way to how do you watch like
NBA TV,
NBA TV
NBA
or
TV, NBA
okay?
TV is the only way. Like I've seen G League games be on there, but it's kind of like when the season's going on, they have so much other content they'll throw it in here and there. But it's one of
Right.
those deals to where I'm gonna be honest. If this was last year's draft, then his story and taking the oxygen out of the room would have been pushed down. But the hype machine that is the NBA and the fact of you only talk about certain topics. We just talked about that in the pre-show meeting. They beat this to death. They beat this to death, and I wish that there was. I wish it was last year's draft, so it would have got pushed down. It's happened. It's
Yeah.
over now, and it's just kind of like I'm more so focused on what is the team going to be doing that are going to be at the 12 rotation players that are going to be on the roster. I'm trying to get
Right.
those instead of worried about that. So that frustrated me. Rob Palenka, as you can tell by my headline, he's frustrating me just because it's like, man, he's as a guy that's a former agent, you have missed so many times on free agent. You should
Hmm.
like I understand it from him being because if you don't know, he was Kobe's agent. That's how he got the end. Not nepotism, but being in certain circles get you certain places.
Yeah.
Hence the Brian point, which I know that has been beat to death, and I don't want to focus on that. But he got that job, and I've heard ever since he's been hired, he was hated by general managers because of the way he was an agent. He was a part of the Fab Five team with Michigan. So he's been in and around basketball, but that hurt. He was so hated. It's one thing if a GM doesn't want to trade with you. Like I know if you're gonna trade with Danny Ainge, normally you're gonna lose half your ass because he's going to get everything in that trade. Dealing with free agents, you're not dealing with the general manager. You're dealing player to player with an agent. You should know how to get that done. And you're failing at that. I'll give him credit for the 2.5 times he did okay. He did good after Kawhi didn't go. He clearly had a plan. Kawhi signed with the Clippers. In the next 2 minutes, you heard Danny Green sign. This player signed, and he did that properly. I will say that after the championship season, he made some moves to not just sit on your laurels. He added some guys. Injuries happened. It didn't work. And then at the trade deadline, the dumbest move was the Westbrook. But when they said, oh, it's going to take a first round pick to get rid of Westbrook and a first round pick for the assets you want to get, for him to trade one first round pick and then get Rui Hachimura in a second round pick in a separate trade, but to get D'Angelo Russell, to get Vanderbilt, to make those moves and then make the conference finals, I got to give him credit for that. But the player options that he's giving players that don't deserve them, that don't need them, those things like that should cost him his job after this season if they
Hmm.
don't turn it around. Because it's,
Yeah.
it's been bad from things like that they have all these cap restrictions. It's a whole spreadsheet of things you can't do if you meet a certain levels on the tax. He signed these players that are veteran minimums. You can't package guys in veteran minimums again, only one per trade, and you got two of them that you don't need that they didn't need a player option. Only one of them maybe, but they didn't have a market, and it's like it's bad how he's been, and it's real frustrating as a fan. It's real frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, they're continuing to make moves. I think today, well, there's a couple moves that are keeping them at one. So I guess they're filling out their coaching roster. So they're bringing in as assistants to JJ. So they got Nate McMillan and Scotty Brooks. So these are, uh, um, you know, um, uh, not legendary coaches, but certainly veteran coaches that he's going to have on his bench. Again, I don't know what kind of look that is. I don't really get into the coaching stuff too much, but the idea is almost like, is this kind of like the NFL where you have your main quarterback, but then you have your backup? And these days, they say if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have no quarterback. So is this kind of thing where you got both of these guys who've been veteran in the league, have had playoff runs and whatnot? Are they going to be the ones, quote unquote, coaching the team? Kind of like back in the day. Again, Larry Bird's my favorite player, but he wasn't the quote unquote coach of the Indiana Pacers right there. And that was, Scott and all these other guys who were, on his bench who were like the main coaches there. So do you think this is, they made such a hoopla over hiring JJ, but now you're going to have these veteran guys who, who knows, they might have coached under him at some point. Now he's the coach. Does this make JJ look good, or is this kind of like a security blanket to say, hey, here we hiring JJ, but just in case it doesn't work out, does he have to be looking over his shoulder when you got those veteran guys on your bench who, again, both had long careers as NBA head coaches? What do you think?
I don't think it's that. I think it's more so this guy's never coached at any level. You need somebody to kind of be able to show you how some things are. And to be honest, it's not the coaches. If we're gonna be honest about this, And I don't take too many unnecessary shots at LeBron. But it's like if you are coaching LeBron, you're already always on looking over your shoulder and on the hot seat, whether it be an
Right.
assistant or whether it be someone else. So it's just one of those deals. There's been a lot of coaching turnover when he's been, on teams. That's a fact. That's not hating, shade, or anything like that. But
Right.
I think it's more of from what I've heard, JJ has the basketball mind, so like the podcast and everything. I could see him drawing up offensive plays, but let's be real. How many of us was knowing him as a defensive player and prospect? Somebody else is
No.
going to be running the defense for the team.
But
That's a clear
Correct.
but you
choice.
got to
Yeah.
be
Go ahead.
realistic
Trey.
about as a coach. You can't look at a coach what he did as a player. All players that become coaches, all of them have coaching strategies. This just about
Yeah.
designing your play and having the players to execute it. Well, it's some coaches that never played the game of NBA, but yet they good defensive coaches because it's about
Also,
your
yeah.
scheme set. It's not about whether or not you can really play defense or not. You know what I'm saying? He has to be able to make the big call in the big moment. That's where those other coaches are going to be able to. So when he's excited in the moment, those other coaches will be able to say, "Okay, man, let's calm down. Let's focus on the task at hand." But just I don't know if y'all know this, but Bronny signed a 4-year deal, and
Yeah.
LeBron re-signed today. So
Yeah. Yeah. LeBron James, 2 years, $104 million max deal with the Lakers. So yeah. So that was the nugget. I mean, I think he tore up his former contract, and so he's going to be there for a minute. Now whether or not he gets to play again, if Bronny's going to be in the G League, yes, I said that. Just because the experiment in Phoenix did not work. I'm sorry. I thought Booker and KD, I thought they'd be a lot better than what they were. But they just haven't been able to get anything going. So that's that. I think that's a failed pairing.
I absolutely expected Bradley Beal to be hurt because he played so much, and then now it's like his body's just breaking down on him. It's that Nash curve.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying it's new to the league. It's just one of those deals where it's like if I'm trying to maximize the end of a great player, I would have preferred an experienced coach that knows what he's doing more so than you hiring back-to-back inexperienced coaches. It's
Yeah.
really not so much about JJ Redick. It's about everything that's happened basically the last probably 10 years of the Lakers.
Right.
And for everyone that's the Lakers, or a LeBron detractor that's mentioned, well, he ruined the Lakers, he did this. Hey, you know what's going to happen when he comes to the team. He's going to want you to put the assets and the chips and push them all in. He's going to want that. But at the same
Right.
time, previous 5 years before he got there, I think it was the worst record in the league.
Right.
And it's
Right.
just like, so it's just like, I can't be mad at them for going for it. It's just that some of the ways we got here, Frank
Right.
Vogel being fired, or better yet, Frank Vogel being hired when it should have been Tyronn Lue, but the $1 billion and the great brand of the Lakers franchise didn't want to give the man the other year on
Right.
his contract. The Clippers did, and he's not the coach. If Tyronn Lue was here, we're not having this conversation right now. And more than likely, I think that there would have been more.
Yeah.
And play with him. Like, I love the clip where he was telling him to shut the hell up or whatever he said. And it was just like, look, man, I'm over here trying to draw up this play. Go over there and chill. So, but
Yeah. And I'm not totally opposed to thinking outside the box and hiring a guy. Again, some of those guys he mentioned obviously worked out. I mean, Kerr, he was an executive. Certainly for a lot of years, I think with San Antonio before he got into the coaching world. Again, Mark Jackson, certainly he had some success. I don't know if I put Magic in there. Didn't Magic coach the Lakers for like 20 games and then was out or something like that? So that might have been the worst. And Isaiah, I don't think he was ever considered a good coach. Nash, I mean, look, you should win if you got KD on your ball club. At least you should win some games. So he was kind of, because the Brooklyn, they were already winning games before he got there. So again, I get the idea that you want to try something out the box, but we'll just have to see. But not Sean, to get in here. What do you got to say both on the draft of Bronny, on the coaching moves today, the extension? So just summarize your what you've seen about the Lakers, the moves that they made certainly over the last week that have certainly taken a lot of the oxygen out of the room. So you can go ahead, sir.
Well, I guess mine's I look at it like, you got Bronny himself being drafted, period, and then the whole conversation related to that with the whole nepotism and all that. So with Bronny, I basically you had what's his name, the agent, uh,
Rich
Rich
Paul.
Paul.
yeah, Rich Paul. He behind the scenes calling teams, don't draft Bronny.
Yeah, I
He's
heard
gonna go to
that. Yeah.
Australia, so he's playing that part. Agents do that, and whatnot. It he ultimately end up with the Lakers. Um, was he the best candidate for the 55th pick? I mean, I guess a strong percentage you could say no, he wasn't. But by that time in the NBA draft, you it's a crapshoot anyway. Most likely, the dudes ain't gonna make the team. They're gonna be G leaguers anyway, which is exactly what Bronny's gonna be. He's gonna be a G leaguer. Now he is getting a guaranteed contract compared to other um, players who was drafted around that time. But I did see something on the internet that was Rich Paul also had another client that was drafted um, late in the second round who also got a guaranteed contract. So it that's just with Bronny. Yeah, he's on the Lakers because of his dad. No different than Thanasis being on the Bucks because of his brother. He just at the end of the bench. Now with the whole nepotism thing, I guess it's obvious because my whole thing with the Lakers is it's not really about them drafting Bronny. It's just how they've been moving um, throughout this whole off season with the how they. I don't really trip that they hired Reddick as their coach, but it's just how they went about it. You basically hired him because your um, icon player was having a podcast with him, and you could see, his knowledge of the game was. If you follow Reddick, or if you hear, 'cause Reddick was doing his thing on the media, it was clear Reddick has a high IQ for the game. But the podcast just opened up a new avenue. Hey, we can make this dude the head coach, even though he has no coaching experience. Now, I know there's, traded showed a list earlier of various coaches that was also had no coaching experience that was hired. Steve Nash, one of them. Steve Kerr, another. But I guess it's just how Reddick got this job via a podcast that he was able to do with LeBron James, who really don't do podcasts like that besides his own the shop. So, but he got it. He respects his knowledge of the game, so it's gonna be interesting to see how the season goes. Now the
Right.
whole nepotism thing with Bronny and the Lakers, yes, I believe nepotism played a part in because obviously he was drafted because his dad, but
Mhm.
it's not the only place that we saw nepotism.
Right.
Now I saw some people was trying to make. Hell, I even heard Ryan Clark mention about it about nepotism, and he used the Dallas Cowboys for example. Reason I don't because and there was somebody I was talking to on the internet. It was the Dallas Cowboys, and then they used the Atlanta Hawks. So I don't know if y'all familiar with the Atlanta Hawks. It was a group that ultimately purchased them. I think in 2015. And there's one I forgot his name. The owner who became the principal owner of the team. They already had a GM that was working with the Hawks, and he was doing a fairly good job. He was properly building the team, but he got tired
Danny
of the
Ferry, wasn't it?
owners. Huh?
I think it was Danny Ferry, I believe.
No, it wasn't
I'm not
Ferry.
mistaken.
It wasn't
It
Ferry.
wasn't Ferry? Okay. I was
He's
thinking
the
of a different
current
guy.
principal owner of the Hawks, and he had his son. The GM at the time was getting tired of being undermined by the son,
Mm.
so GM was let go, and then the son ultimately took the GM spot, and you had the better he's not, and then the Hawks being the Hawks, they haven't really been doing anything since. You let go of a decent GM for your son to be in that spot, and he's not definitely not qualified, and he's doing a worse job. That to me is nepotism. Now with the Cowboys, Jerry Jones bought that team straight out. It was his team. So now he never hired anybody else outside to do a job as far as the front office. It went directly to his family. So to me, that's no different than you owning a family business, because that's exactly what the Cowboys is now. It's a family business. They keep it in the family. I'll use an example as a barbershop, and then you passing the barbershop on to your son. So it's going to be passed to Stephen Jones if something happens to
For
Jerry.
sure.
So I can't really say that's nepotism because there was never nobody else in that GM spot. It was always held by Jerry, and then the next position of power was always Stephen Jones. And then as soon as something happened to Jerry, Steven stepped up. So now the outside, you could look at it and say like, this dude is more qualified. This dude's more qualified. But I can't really say nepotism for that
Right.
franchise because it was always a family business. It was nobody that overstepped to get it.
Right.
So
You
Yeah.
damn Dallas fans, boy. Come
why you keep
on,
blaming it on the
man.
Cowboys?
Come on.
It's a
Look, you can
family
game. Look,
owned
the
business.
Cowboys. Look,
It's a
well, who
family
started? Hang
owned
Come
on.
business.
The
on.
New
Come
York
on.
Yankees, the Steinbrenners still own the Yankees. So yeah. I'm not hating on the nepotism. That was the fact. This whole story, it was never about the nepotism for me. My
Yeah,
thing again, my biggest criticism was with the NCAA, and again, it seems to be losing influence. The college product, the March Madness, the numbers, the ratings are down dramatically. They're not marketing their players well. The NBA, they're shopping overseas to get players now, and then you have these guys who are not taking the college option. They're playing in these privatized basketball leagues where guys are getting drafted from. So it's really just the whole going into the draft when you can't name the top 5 or 6 guys, or there's no argument over who's going to get the number one guy. That is my problem. And couple that with the main headline was who was going to draft Bronny James. I think those two things together made it a little bit unpalatable for me. But look, yeah, like I said, I have no issue with that at all. Ken Griffey Jr. played with Ken Sr. Towards the end of Ken Sr.'s career. He had a long career with the Reds, and then he went to Seattle to finish up. Father son in baseball, beautiful story. Like I said, I got nothing. I got nothing with that. But the NCAA, I think, is losing. And I don't know if they're going to be able to command, because again, March Madness, networks are paying billions of dollars to cover March Madness. That CBS deals or whatnot. Are they willing to fork over that kind of money? Again, I don't know when that contract expires, but are they going to be willing to fork over that kind of money, saying and looking at your ratings when this year the women outdid you guys in terms of the ratings? So are they going to be able to command that? And is it losing relevancy? We're going to look at the NCAA like the NIT. So is that where this is going? That's what I'm saying. It's not.
I think the brand. I think it hurts the NBA more than it hurts the NCAA because the coaches are the stars and the brand of it's the tournament March Madness and you're gonna see the upsets, the buzzer beaters, that whole package. Now I will say this, Mr. Bennett. On the side note, the sports bubble will burst at some point. I don't know when it's going to burst, but at some point, somebody's going to say, I'm not paying all of this for this package. And I don't think it'll be the NFL because I think they're going to go for a while. But I think the NBA or the college, somebody is going to burst somewhere in one of the sports. And at some point, they're going to say, hey, we don't have as many stars. You're winning because of the packaging of the March Madness and the excitement, but it's nameless, faceless product. It's insert a new name, and then you get what's the guy Burns from North Carolina State that comes up. You'll get somebody that becomes a star, and you hope he keeps winning, but you don't have a even in what 18, 20 years ago, you had a Jimmer Fredette, you had a JJ Redick, you had guys that had been there a while to build a name that you knew, hate programs that you hated and stars that you knew. We don't get that anymore. We're getting, I hate to be it, the 23, 24, 25 year olds that's been to a couple of stops, know how to really play ball, not going pro, well, not going to the NBA per se, but they know how to play ball and their teams can go and win. Now you are starting to see like what UConn did, where the Klingon guy got drafted, the guard they had got drafted. You're starting to see some of those teams do it. And, Villanova used to produce guys, obviously, and still win. But the NBA and college basketball need to kind of come together and make and kind of figure out a way to kind of fix that. But the NBA has never really seemed like they work with them. So
Well,
Right.
I heard that now. I don't. I'm assuming this wasn't how it was viewed in the past, but now the longer you stay in school, it's viewed as a negative. Like
It's always been that way.
if
Yeah.
you have that talent, they're expecting you to be making your way to the NBA with the first or second year max. But if you decide to stay in 3 or 4 years, back then that was okay. We have a more developed player now coming into into the pros. You know, he may
But the
be okay.
NBA,
He's 22 years old. Okay, that's he's still young. But
but
nowadays they think like
Yeah.
if
They
you
did that for the guy for the Lakers. The guy that dropped for the
but
Lakers, they felt like he was a good prospect, but they
connect,
was like, he's 23. Connect.
I
Y'all
thought he
said
was
they was like, he's
nice.
23.
but
Never
Now
mind.
he
but
was
the
one name I did recognize. What's up, sir?
but the NBA has never really supported college players staying in college. It goes back to Dr. J and Moses Malone. They've always drafted players out of high school, and players were able to come out of high school. So they ain't really looking at college like that. Remember, player LeBron came straight out of high school. Then they put in the 1 year rule. After 1 year, players were moving, coming to the NBA, whether they were making it or not. Now with the NIL, as a individual in your long-term career, I could see it's best, especially if you're a top tier player, get your degree out of it, make that couple of $1 million. But the NBA is looking at it like, oh, you too old already. So you might not go in the first round. We'd rather take a guy who's a freshman or coming out of high school top tier and get those extra 2 or 3 years out of them and put them ahead of a player who's been consistent, maybe 1,015 point career college guy. So you know he can play. But now that they implement more of this overseas, they rather take a 17-year-old coming from Spain and put him in that position. I just
Well,
think, I don't know, man. If you
well
ain't in the top five schools, go to college, stay in college. Fuck
they
it.
Mhm.
were saying if a player who's been in college for 3 or 4 years, that's more. You was
Buddy
basically able to
Hield,
put
yeah,
more on tape,
Buddy
so they
Hield,
can see. Yeah, they can see your flaws. You have more visible flaws because you've
yeah.
been there's more tape now. They'll rather take an opportunity on the young player who maybe 1 or 2 years in school and he's still raw. It's not like a lot of film. So that's what that was their reasoning why I guess they'll look at players who've been in school longer. But then again, I think I was mentioning last week. Okay, you want to get the younger players in the league. Well, now ultimately the league is getting younger, and it's going to be filled with those one and done college players, and
It's
their
gonna be
skill set is not
right.
they're not as developed. So us as a fan base, we look at the NBA product, we like, man, you not this is not like the best product that we believe that should be on the court because we can see that this player still needs to be developed. But now the NBA, the teams, they done invested so much money into these players now. It's almost like, man, we have to play them. So now you're
Yeah.
seeing us, we could see that this product, like compared to like the mid 2000s,
Right.
we can see that this product now at 24, as far as player by player throughout the rosters, we can see like these dudes are not as skilled or they're not as developed as players used to be when they came in the league.
And that's where they play. I think over the course of the next 20 years, you're gonna see less and less players drafted out of colleges. They're
Correct.
gonna
Yeah. Like
be
I said,
going
the
to these
birth of these
overseas players.
leagues.
So
Yeah. Because the first thing I saw was like I know when the ball family was out, and then he started that league, and then you started seeing all these other. I'm not sure. I don't think they were the first ones. I'm saying there were other leagues, but I think it's like when they started their league, and then you had I think one of the sons who didn't get drafted. I guess he had to play there because he kind of messed up his career, with the China incident, but I think that's going to be more and more of an option because you're talking about top 10 players coming out of these basketball leagues or out of these basketball out of these associations now. So I think they're going to get a smaller slice of the pie, but like I said, in terms of the product, in terms of watching it, people just don't have time, especially with the NFL now. People just simply do not have time to be into with college football and professional football taking the air out the room. You don't really get turned on in college until February, at least when you start playing your conference schedule. And it's No, so again, they're really going to have to do some work there.
The
But
NCAA will never go anywhere, Mr. Bennett. It's going to always have a strong backing, a strong standing because it's about the college student. It's not about
Right.
us watching on the outside. It's about those college students
that
because,
TV deal, yes, it
but
is. That
they're going to always get a TV deal. You can best
not
believe that.
not maybe not maybe not as
Yeah,
big, maybe
it's
not
going to
as
be as
big.
big.
Trey,
I'll
that
put
may
it in
that
this
may
way.
have been the case back then, but the way
It's
they
going to be
move
the
in the
case now with
conferences,
NIL. Watch what I tell you.
it's
It's
all
going to be
about
the
Super
case
it's
Bowl
all
now.
about the
traditionally
money for
early
them now.
February, right? It's traditionally been early February. Ever since it's been pushed back, and now with the college football playoff taking up in
Yep.
January, I normally started really watching college ball Big Monday. That first Big Monday when NFL season, there is no Monday night. I'm watching
Right.
Big Monday. I'm hyped up. It's a game in the Big East, one of them schools,
Yeah.
and the slugfest, and seeing how many teams they're gonna make the tournament. It used to be a bigger deal, but with the growth of college football and gutting conferences to where it's like, now we're gonna put Syracuse in this conference over here and move them out of the Big Ten and all the different conference alignment. At one point, it was disgusting. TCU was gonna be in the Big East for football reasons, and I was like, my lord, they're gonna get destroyed in basketball. And
Mhm.
and then thank God the Big 12 came in and was like, we're gonna put you in the Big 12, and A&M left. But it used to be a bigger deal. It's still gonna get there, but I think what we're gonna see is we're going to see when guys do go, if they go to those leagues, you're going to see leagues prioritize the college guy over those. Like we know, what's the name's probably Cooper Flag's probably going to be a top pick unless he just bombs it because he looked like it as a prospect coming up, through the AU circuit in high school basketball. Going to those, he goes to Monteverde, where a lot of big players go and they stack up all those 5 stars and they play against other teams. But I think something the NBA really. I don't know. They're gonna have to find a. The NCAA is gonna have to find a way to get guys, and they need people may not like this. They need more Calipari's. We didn't have this problem when John Calipari was freaking out all those guys in Kentucky and
Mhm.
maybe getting bounced in the second round, maybe making it to the Elite Eight, maybe making it to the Final Four. We did not have that problem because I remember Colin Cowherd said something interesting once. He said, "You can't tell the story of the NBA without talking about." He said, "You can tell the story of the NBA without including Kentucky because they didn't get a lot of the stars." And then that's changed with Anthony Davis, Carl Anthony Towns,
Right.
Devin Booker, so on and so forth. And I think we need more coaches like that, but they're more so, hey, I want to win and I want to get the recruits, but I want to win and win for me. Calipari took a hit, but if you get more coaches thinking like that to get them ready for the pros, I think that'll be a good. That's
I
that's
hear
the way
you.
to go.
I hear you.
Everybody's not going to
Let's,
win a championship.
I got you. I got you. Let's stay in the West. Obviously, I guess the next biggest move that's been made, and also this is almost like a retrospective on the Splash Brothers, the Warriors. I don't know if you want to call them in today's NBA, would they be considered a dynasty? Would you call the Warriors from 2015 to
Oh yeah,
2022 four championships in an 8-year span? Would you 7-year span? Would you consider that a dynasty today?
oh yeah, easy dynasty.
Yeah,
They could
Yeah,
have won.
brother
They could have
Bennett.
won some more, but
they,
they
they
got
won
that
one
three
less than the
one.
Spurs.
Right, and they won it back to back in there,
Draymond,
and they won it back to
And
back because I know the Spurs for a long time they were saying the Spurs weren't a dynasty because I don't think they ever won back to back. But the Warriors obviously you're breaking up
yeah,
the trio,
the Spurs was a
the
dynasty.
trio of guys there. Clay 34 goes to the Mavericks, 3-year deal, 50 million, which is kind of on the low side. I thought. I mean, it seemed like you got these average players getting $200 million deals or whatever. So I thought it was a little low. But again, Dallas needed shooting, as we saw. That was evidence against the 2023-2024 NBA champion Boston Celtics. So they obviously need some shooting there. They got some shooting now. Yeah, I'm gonna troll this just for a little bit. So they got Clay. So how do you think this helps the Mavericks? Honestly, I think Denver's will be back next year. I don't think this necessarily shifts the balance of power in the West. I still think the Mavericks. You got Minnesota. I think they're going to be better. OKC. I know they bolstered. Got some big help as well. What do you think of the trade, and then any retrospect you have on the Splash Brothers, on the Golden State Warriors, that dynasty run since it's officially the Beatles have officially broken up. So, what do you think of that? So, who wants to take Trey? You want to start? You want to start that one?
well, as far as Golden State, yes, it's the end of a dynamic duo era, probably the best shooting guard tandem in NBA history, hands down. I think with Dallas, they just got smaller to me. They just got smaller, and in the West, they gonna need two or three bigger guys just to handle the inside presence of the West teams. Um, it's great. Kyrie can handle, Luka can handle the ball. Clay, he's definitely the one of the best spot up shooters. But as far as inside size, I see him no
Well, how
better
how did they
than
how did they get
Fifth
smaller? Trades was about giving up Derrick Jones
because
too.
you gave it up. You gave up Derrick Jones, who can at least block shots and rebound for you. Now you got if I look at a starting five for Dallas, I look at what's that? Langley, Washington, Clay, Luca, and Kyrie. That's small as hell. Clay ain't gonna get you no rebounds. Langley, he by himself beat PJ Washington. He's shooting the jump shots that Clay's going to be shooting. So I just think they
Well,
too small. They don't really have no inside. They
well,
need to
I
get bigger.
think they should have Gafford coming back. He would definitely him and Lively make a good
Yeah, I think he's
dynamic
coming
duo
back.
for the big man.
So who
But
goes to the bench?
Washington, uh,
Washington.
well, I think well, no, they did. What's his name? Matter of
Then
fact,
they
no,
got rid of Hardaway Jr., didn't they?
Correct.
no,
Correct. Yes, they did.
they
Yep.
got size back.
Told
They
you that
got
was
size
coming.
back. They got. I'm looking for him now. I always forget his name. He came from New Orleans. Marshall.
Najee Marshall. That's who I was going to
Yes,
talk
there go
about.
your size right there.
Marshall.
That's a
Hmm
that's a nice wing player. My thing is, if you go and watch his highlights and you go watch him play, he's a really defensive minded player and a good ball player. It's one of those you get him for a price, you might think, ah, that's a tad too rich. But then when he plays into the contract, it's good. And I want to say, Damon Jones, who's the broadcaster for the Pelicans, he was mentioning like in games where he's able to start and get consistent minutes, he actually plays really good. He can shoot the three pretty well, and he's a quintessential 3-and-D guy. So you replace Tim Hardaway Jr. and you get Klay Thompson, who the defense not as much, but he's a more consistent 3-point shooter in his career. I think last year he was 38%, and he's a more consistent shooter. He'll at least compete defensively, and he's a guy that doesn't need the ball. Tim Hardaway was a guy that I heard once, and I know you was critical of my Mavericks take, but from people that watch the Mavericks and know the team, he had to be in the starting lineup because he can't handle the ball and he has to have the ball to be effective because he's not a strong defender. So that's why you would see him in and out of the lineup. And I think Clay, you know what he is. He doesn't need the ball. He's gonna run off screens. He's really a three now. He's not a two. So my thing is
Right.
he what is he 6'7"? So it's like
Yeah.
positional size is good. So I don't think it's a thing of smaller. It's just a thing that Derek Lively, you thinking of him, he's a thin guy, but it's a guy that he's what 20, 19, 20 years old. He's gonna add size, and he's 7 foot. And you need a guy like Lively because you got to think of it. This is not the 2000s. This is not the 90s. The big men aren't all Joel Embiid size. They are Victor Wembanyama. You got to follow what the model of what the
Yeah.
future is. And so I think it's a good move to get Clay. It's not the end all be all, but I think it is a sign of, like I mentioned before, Nico Harrison turning over the roster year after year and now being a destination for free agents. Beat my Lakers to get him where a guy had ties his father literally still works for the Lakers, and you had that push. He grew up and spent his whole life on the West Coast. Whether it's Los Angeles, the Bay Area where he played, Oregon where he went to, where he was lived at some point, and it's just like they beat him out to get that to deal. So that's a big move for the Mavericks. It's just that now I don't think they emptied out everything that they got, and so if there's a move they need to make at the deadline, they might be able to make that too.
Dante, that looks good on paper and that looks good in the regular season. Come playoff time, that little small shit is not gonna work because the Joker is
You
gonna
know what?
dominate.
Small.
It ain't gonna work.
Did you not see the Knicks? The Knicks got one. They play with one center. Teams do not play with the
Okay,
traditional 4 and 5. Look at
we
the
talking
Well,
Celtics.
West.
actually, now
We talking West. Talking
look at
West.
OKC. They just got the
I was
guy
gonna say.
from New York, so they
I
got
was
two
gonna say.
7 foot. So they got two
That's
7 footers.
that's gonna
So
be a good
And
team.
only one is
yeah,
gonna play at one time. they're not going to play together. You know, I want to say Chet, because the thing is, if you playing Chet there, can Chet move his feet? If let's just say, I put, who can you put at the 4? You put PJ Washington at the 4, and you're playing against them. PJ Washington is pretty fluid for a guy that's 7'1". He may not be very big, but can he move those puppies? I forgot the name of that coach that always says that. Can he move those puppies when he plays against a smaller player? You can play a center off the floor. Like Jonas Valanciunas is a good player. When the Lakers played them, it was about 5 minutes, and it was like, can't play you tonight, and had to sit him on the ground because the way things are going. You have to have one traditional center to rebound, but you got Josh Hart getting 12, 13 rebounds. He's 6'4". It's not always about the size of the dog, but the size of the dog in the fight.
OKC weakness was rebounds and Hardenstein.
And they got to get Hardenstein.
Yeah, and they got that. So they'll definitely be able to bolster those. But I think that the young guy that got there, I think he's going to be a good overall defensive player. He showed me a lot in the in this playoff run. But real quick, I just want to address Trey. All right, so again, dynasty. The only case I'll make for the San Antonio Spurs being a dynasty is from 2003 to 2007 because they won 3 and 5. So I'll give you that one. I'm not giving you 99. That was David Robinson's team for the most part. Duncan was a rookie, and I'm not giving you 2014, which was 7 years after their last championship when they won with Kawhi. So I'm not giving. I'll give you that middle layer. I'll give you 3 and 5. If you want to say that was a dynastic team. But I'm not giving you those bookends. I'm not giving you those.
So, Brother Bennett, and I know you're a fan. Could you call Boston a dynasty when Bird was winning?
Again, they won. They won 3. They won 3 and 6. They won 3 and 6, and they went to like five finals in that run. So absolutely. You got to do them. For me, dynasty, also the players that you do it with. I mean, San Antonio, you can say in the 99, 2000 team, those middle teams with Manu Ginobili, and then the team with Kawhi, that's almost 3 separate teams. So it's not the same thing. But Bird, McHale, Parrish, DJ. You trying to sell me? So I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Or you look at the Lakers, with the Magic and Kareem and Worthy and those guys or whatever. I think you gotta put them in. I think you gotta put them in bunches to be considered a dynasty. But you spread it out, different rosters and whatnot. Yes, you had Duncan for a lot of those years and whatnot. But again, I'm not going to put them in the same as, certainly not the Celtic teams of the 50s and 60s and all that. But I won't even give those guys credits because there was like 12 teams in the league at that time. So I won't even want to put the old Celtics from the 50s and 60s in there because it was almost like unfair. They won like 6 or 7 in a row or something like that. So I'm not even going to. In a row. Right. So I'm not even going, because the league was not. The league was not. So, and as a Celtic fan, I'm not buying a lot of that. But any retrospect, again, the Warriors. All right. Now, again, I give credit to the Warriors. I think that team changed, I think, the NBA. Now, some people didn't like it. I know Greg Popovich, he was very critical of that style of play, saying this isn't basketball and whatnot. But it was very exciting. Those guys had me staying up after 11 p.m. almost every night. They were on ESPN playing a late night game or whatever. It was a very exciting brand of basketball. Clay had a lot to do with that. There were just some games he went off, scored 37 and a quarter. A very exciting brand of basketball to watch. And especially coming out of the earlier years where, again, a lot of low-scoring games and whatnot in the early 2000s into the middle 2000s and whatnot. So, and again, you had all these little kids. All of a sudden, they were wearing Steph. And I know Steph is coming back, but he's going to be like 36, 37 years old, so he doesn't have a lot left in the tank. But again, they changed basketball. I mean, you had these little kids wearing Steph Curry jerseys and whatnot, and they were just like even if you didn't like the team, they were must-see TV because any one of those guys could go off. And so, I certainly enjoyed the Warriors era, but it definitely officially came to an end today. But it's been tanking for a while with, Green going crazy, knocking out his teammates and all this kind of stuff. So, hey, it's definitely, there's been a single shot. I'm shocked they won back in 22. Unfortunately, beating my Celtics, I'm shocked. But, hey, they were an entertaining product for a while. So, thank you, Warriors, for keeping me up late at night till 2 a.m. watching your games. But that's how much I enjoyed watching to the point where I didn't want to record and watch it later. So, any other guys have a point on that before we move to the East?
I'll say this: they will certainly were a dynasty just because of the way they impacted, the way they won. And when you look at it, I saw somebody say after that finals, that 2016 finals, that was really kind of for this era of the NBA. That was the apex, and then there was been a little bit of drop each time.
Mm.
And then I want to say they had to when they were still in their run and they won the back to back. It was just so uncompetitive because, and that's the other thing is about viewership and interest. That dynasty kept people interested because you wanted to see them lose. You want people were like wanting to see them lose or wanted to see how much they could win and how good it could be. And that's most certainly a dynasty in my book. You gotta give you can not like or whatever. You gotta give KD's props for being a part of that for two
Mm.
of those. But you also gotta say that Steph was let's just say Steph was robbed out of that first Finals MVP. When you go back and look up that you gave it to Andre Iguodala, and then you go look at LeBron's stat lines, and he guarded him most of the time. Sir, that's not a Finals MVP. You got your excuse my language. You got your ass bust. You just did. You did. But Steph winning that Finals MVP to bring it home in the
That's
crescendo
right.
and with the two MVPs, like that was a dominant team, and that was an era that they had people playing basketball. You got to move this rock, and that's the only thing I'll say about Clay over there in the Mavericks. Luka got to move the ball. Kyrie got to move the ball a little bit more. We saw too much stagnation, but yeah, certainly it's tough to see those things happen. The salary cap did help make this happen. Also, Clay would have got paid more to stay because it's one of those deals to where when the guy stays, I got to make at least this much. If I'm going to take less, I'm gonna go somewhere else. I can't. I got to be the man here. Like they were doing the story about all the things that Clay Thompson did off the radar and made the team human, like
Mm.
local rappers that he liked. And yeah, he went to a girls' high school state championship, ring ceremony to make it special and low key things. And it's like he's going to be missed by the community. I want to see the game when he comes back. I know it's going to be tough. And even Draymond said, I shed tears. That's tough. Those guys been in some battles together. I
Yeah.
wish you could have stayed together, but that's not pro sports today. So.
I hear you. I hear you. Shawnee, any last thoughts before we move on to the East?
And I agree. I believe the Warriors were a dynasty. They they was a they was starting to become a dynasty with their original three, and then they became a juggernaut with KD. I believe it came to a premature end because I believe they would have won that title the year that they lost KD and Clay
Yeah.
when the Raptors ended up winning.
Yeah. Yeah. They were
So
decimated
I
by
believe
that
they would have
point.
won that one. So that was probably kind of ended prematurely. Of course, they should have won the one that they gave up to Cleveland when they had
Hmm.
really won to come back because Draymond got suspended. So
Yeah.
they are definitely a dynasty. I really don't know how much. I really don't know what the Mavs are really going to get with Clay because he just wasn't. He started showing. He started having more off games than on. Um, I don't know if the change of scenery just going to pop up and I mean because he's going to a completely different style of offense. I mean he was you know one thing about the Warriors they reminded me of the Spurs when they I love the way they passed the ball and they stayed moving. Well, the Mavs don't do that. You basically just gonna be stationary and wait for Luca to pass you the ball, and it's gonna be a change of pace for him. And it just remains to be seen if he really gonna. We're not expecting him to be a Game Six Clay, but
Hmm.
just to be more productive than he was towards
Right.
his later years with the Warriors. So
But do you think he can be that again, especially if Luca doesn't change fundamentally how he plays? If he's gonna, take half of most of the 24-second clock, before he gives it up again, is that going to be an improvement for him? I don't think I don't think
I
it's a good fit
I
overall.
don't know. I don't think he will because him and Steph reminded me like Ray Allen and Reggie Miller how they move without the ball. That's a
Yeah.
skill set that you
Right.
just don't do. That's a skill set,
Right.
and now you completely because it's gonna be hard for because you know how effective that is if that's something that you know you can do, and to go to a team that you completely not doing that, it's gonna be interesting to see if he's gonna get frustrated with that.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, we gotta move. We have to move. We gotta have motion. We just can't have this ball just coming to from
I
one
think it's on
particular
kids though.
player.
I think it's on key. I think it's on kid to notice that as a smart, as a smart coach. I'd say at
Hmm.
this point, pretty solid coach. I put it on him. I put it on Luca. I put it on Kyrie, the main ball handlers, and the coach just to be like, look, man, we got to quote Payne Fool, what's the sense of having soldiers if you're not gonna use them?
Yeah.
You got a guy in Clay is a sniper. He's got to run off those screens and catch him. And then the thing is, they haven't played with a guy like that. So now that you play with one, maybe in training camp practice, they're starting to figure out. You know what? Take Luca ISO on 10 pages of the playbook. Man, hurt those out of there and put some plays for Clay Thompson. So I think it has a chance to work out. As of course, like I had a friend of mine that obviously got a lot of Mavericks friends, and they were like, he tagged me in a post. He was just like, when Clay goes 3 for 10 in an important game, and I was just like, so I think Mavs fans know to a degree. There's a level of it, but the name and tied to that dynasty, it's more of a look what we got. And you, especially when you make a move like that, when you just got close and lost, you just got to the finals and lost. To make a move like that, that's kind of like that's encouraging. So we gonna see. I mean, we're gonna see what happens. I mean, I think a lot of the moves are good for all parties involved. Like Tim Hardaway Jr. going to those young guys up in Detroit. My lord, they need a veteran there, and they need shooting. They got all the athletes and no shooting, and so
Mhm. Yeah. Well, let's move over to the East. So obviously, again, couple of moves. I guess some maintenance for the Celtics. Again, obviously, um, they signed White to a 4-year, $125 million deal. I think certainly well deserved. Came up big in the postseason. So I think they're definitely a bolster the roster. But the big news again, Tatum signs an NBA record 5-year, $314 million deal. So they got between two players, $614 million between Brown and Tatum. But it was time. They got the ring. They got the championship. So it's like, hey, yeah, it might have been a little overpaid for White, but he showed me, especially in the playoffs and in big games, he comes up with big buckets. He plays big, plays hurt. I mean, got his face smashed in the game, broke his teeth, whatever. Still came up shooting 3-point shots. So look, I'm seeing all these kind of mid-tier players getting $200 million deals. So again, a 4-year 125. I could certainly live with that. So Celtics, they're definitely just ain't bunkering down for another year. They're going to try to do this back to back, and I still think they're the number one team in the East right now. So as we can kind of switch over to just down the road, down to Philly. So again, they certainly acquired Paul George. And before we even get there, I must say, obviously the Clippers, I think, are the most cursed team in NBA history. First of all, they had that godforsaken owner for so many years that just terrible for the league, for that city and whatnot. You thought there was going to be some light at the end of the tunnel when they got the guy from Microsoft to buy the team, and they were certainly poised. I thought the coaching changes that they made. I thought they had a team that competed and played well. They get Kawhi Leonard. But then Kawhi Leonard holds them over a barrel, says, you got to get Paul George. They traded a ton of draft capital to get George. And the only time that, certainly that 1 year they went to the Western Conference Finals, Kawhi, as usual, wasn't there. He hasn't been there for most of this run. So they're just cursed, man. It's just unfortunate that they've, invested so much, bowing, to Kawhi. And just over the last few years, Kawhi just hasn't been shown that he can be a reliable player. So why he gets the love that he gets, I don't know. But it's just unfortunate that those guys are going to be hurting for a long time. And who knows when Kawhi's ever going to give you a 65-game season, let alone an 82-game season. So, yes. So Paul George in Philly. All right. So you got Maxey, Philly, and Embiid. Maxey, George, and Embiid. So that's their big three. So how do you think this change? Do you guys think this changes anything in the East? So what are you guys feeling about the move? So you want to go Dante on this one? You take it.
yes, I will say this: it's much grief, and I'm not here as a Celtic defender. Y'all know that I grabbed the Laker hat. The East getting better, more competitive to sharpen their knives against them. So when you're going to it, you can go handle one of those juggernauts from the West. But the fact that Philadelphia, they went with the old model. The 3-star model is not what you really go with anymore. But for them to say, we already got Maxi, we got Embiid, and then for you to be like, he's coming off of a rookie deal. So this is a player that we're not have to sign to this year. We can use his bird rights. to go over the cap and to make the free agent signing with straight cash to sign him to have that, that pays off for Daryl Morey, who I give a lot of crap to. Analytics guys love him, but it's like his teams don't ever do nothing in the playoffs. So he's got to, because he looks at the numbers and not the people thing. So hopefully this time the people of Paul George's personality, Joel Embiid's personality, and young Tyrese Maxey, hopefully it works. I'll say this: I'm not for this extreme load management. Get Paul George and Joel Embiid to the playoffs healthy, and let Tyrese Maxey, the young guy, let him push you through the regular season because he's really blossomed. And then my thing is, I think they picked up was Andre Drummond as the backup big, so it's just like you got when he misses games, Drummond can spot start. I would say, hey, Philly is a legit claim. I would say they're still probably behind East West the Knicks we talked about last week with Mikal Bridges with all the wings that they have and what is it, the Villanova four that they got.
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
say the East. I would say between those two teams, of course, Boston's still at the top. That's a real interesting thing. I would say a team that's not that it's flown under the radar. And I'll say this, not to be an apologist for Dame Lillard, but what I don't know if he predicted it. He always said, "What if you go to a new city and it doesn't work?" And now we're seeing it did not work year one. I know he's going through a divorce. He was in a funk. I know that they signed a key cheap free agent in Torian Prince. Of course, he follows Darvin Ham, who played him over other guys, but I'm not going to go on to that. I'll say this. They have a team that can still make some noise. They need Giannis healthy, and obviously they need Dame healthy and on top of his game. But the East, if you look at it on paper, I think it'll be a lot better, just depending on how the injuries flow and how people in jail fit. Like, how does Paul George fit in? And I think his game will be in a two-way guy. Obviously, I think he's 34. Probably not going to be as big as a two-way guy as he once was, but he's still a guy that can get you buckets, get a few stops. And I like what Philly did. I think it was. I think it's not getting. I think it's getting talked about relative enough, but it's tough when you got the champs in your conference. So they're going to get the love. The Knicks in the media market, they're going to get all the love, even though they gave up 5 first-round picks. I don't know if McHale has ever made an All-Star game, but that's another topic. But I like
yeah,
it. I
yeah,
like the way things are shaping up.
yeah. Shawnee, what you got?
Man, I believe the Sixers, of course, gotten better by adding George. But I don't care if adding George. That they not going anywhere to me. I think they're
Mm.
gonna have another first or second round exit simply because of Joel Embiid. It's we talked
I'll
about
take
the
that.
Clippers. We talked about the Clippers and how Kawhi hell Clippers even tried to load management with Kawhi. Still got hurt in the first round out the playoffs. Embiid, because he still wants to compete for that MVP title when he plays. So he's gonna have to play at least 65 games. You have
Yeah,
seen on basically almost damn near every besides that year that Kawhi made the game 7 shot. But I don't know how he was playing fine on that in that series. His body literally deteriorates as the year goes on. Every year it's the same thing with Embiid. And then once he makes it into the playoffs, he's either he can't play, he's off the court, or what if he's
Hobble.
playing, he's dealing with a significant injury that impacts his play on the court. And it's like this with every year. Now maybe you got to go to him and like, hey man, don't worry about this MVP. I know you be trying to play and because it's you see Embiid every beginning of the year, the first couple of months, he is just wrecking the league. Oh, he's the early MVP. He's the early MVP, and then the injury happens, and then he just slides. And this happens all the time. And when he did win MVP, he was able to win, but his injury happened closer to the playoffs. And then he had those two bad games versus the Celtics, and that's when people were looking at because that's when Joker had a chance to becoming three consecutive MVPs. And then when the playoff happened, Joker was looking like the MVP. Embiid was not. He had some good games, but he had some bad games as well. In particular, two bad games versus Boston because
Mm.
he was dealing with some injury that hampers his on the court play. So, I mean, when I'm looking at Paul George, I think it's going to be a time where it's going to be Maxi and George in the almost like how it was with it was George and Westbrook, and then Harden kind of pick up the slack because Leonard is not there. Well, it's going to
Right.
be the same thing in Philly. So
Could
I mean,
could just be
it may
vaccinated
just be
sometimes.
frustrating Philly more because going through the same thing until Embiid can play throughout a playoff series, a whole playoffs. If he's healthy, then yes, they can make it to the finals, have a chance to win the finals. But Embiid, every time he comes into the playoffs now, he is dealing with a significant injury that will ultimately cut his production damn near about 50%.
Mm.
So yeah.
All right. So Trey, what's your take on the shift in the East here? How do you think this bolsters Philly? Where do you project them to go? How do you like to move?
You on mute, Trey.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think it helps Philly out a great deal. Like everybody said, it's just going to be coming down to the healthiness of Embiid as the season progresses, the second half. I think Paul George. These guys are getting older. You know, 13, 14 years in the league, and you're going to see a lot of these guys' bodies start to catch up with them. I believe so, but as long as they stay in good shape, I hope Boston. If Boston comes back with the same intensity, they'll be okay. Philadelphia again has something to prove because they made a tremendous improvement in Paul George, an All-Star caliber player. I'm interested to see New York what they do. I think they've sort of improved with scoring, but if Randall doesn't stay healthy, then it'll be back to the same old thing. A lot of
Okay.
teams are getting better. I'm interested to see who's the top four teams in the East coming out
I
this
was
year.
I was just I was just about to ask that because obviously you got the Knicks. So really, to me, it's between the Knicks and Philly who's going to get that second seed. Now again, Trey he had mentioned Milwaukee that they're going to be back.
Yeah,
I don't know with that coaching situation. I mean, Doc Rivers, that didn't work out. 500 coach the rest of the way. I don't know. I think Giannis is getting a reputation as a coach killer in the league. So until they get him again, who he wants, I don't know who he wants. Quite frankly. And again, when you get to when you got your guys naming the coaches, I just think they have some logistical issues. I think they need to work out. So I'll loosely give them number 4. I don't know. I may even want to go to Indiana. I'll play the
mhm.
Bucks this coming year. But I just think that it's becoming a mess in Milwaukee, and that in that midseason coaching out the guy was up 20 games over 500. Whatever, you get rid of him, and you barely get win 500 with Doc. So
I got
they've got some issues over there.
I got a sneaky team at number 4 because they made a really good move, and I know it's not gonna get a lot of love. But the young Magic getting Contavious Caldwell Pope, putting him over there as
Yeah, yeah,
another veteran leader, guy that can make some shots. And you got a guy, and I know everyone keeps saying, "Oh man, the foreigners, and these." I mean, you got a great young player that took Donovan Mitchell in those casts to 7 games, and Pablo Banchero, and I want to say he was an All Star last year, and he's coming along, and it's just I think they're a team that has pieces where they can make a trade to get someone else to add to him. But if he continues to grow his game, and then he's a forward, he's 6'10", but he's one of those guys. But he's stoutly built, and I want to say so. He's a guy that's going to look like he can withstand injury and kind of play a good while. I would say they're a team that could fight for the 4th spot. I mean, because especially with young teams, they're always going to try to come out of the gate. Whereas the veterans, I can see Boston, as good as the year they had last year, I can see them coasting at times in
yeah,
November and December, and then turning it up for the I know the Pistons hosting, and then turning it up for that.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Just Shawnee, what do you think about again top 4 in the East right now with the moves that have been made?
Right now it's going to be the usual. I mean,
Just say it once. I
Celtics,
just want to hear it just one
Celtics,
time.
Knicks.
Just say who's number 1. Just say number 1. Just say it.
Celtics, Knicks.
Killing them.
Um,
Knicks. Okay, so you got the Knicks number 2, or you just naming your top
actually, I'm gonna
4?
go Celtics, Knicks, Sixers. Damn it, I want to say the Pacers, but I do not trust their
No, it's not
defense.
bad. Like I said, Milwaukee. I haven't seen anything that's making me excited over there.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on in Milwaukee right now, so I don't know what they're doing.
yeah. I may put the Pacers because I think their offense is legit. It can give anybody trouble. If they can show up their defense, that could be a team to watch. A nice young team. So I'm gonna say Pacers. I'm gonna say Pacers.
Yeah, I like your selection. I like your selection. Moving into the last parts of the show. So again, this was very heavily again because of all the moves with the NBA draft. Again, football's around the corner. The Olympics starts on July 26th, so we got still a couple weeks to certainly preview the Olympics before it starts. I'm a big track and field guy, so I'll definitely be following that. USA versus Jamaica in track and field, and sprinting doesn't get better than that. So I'll definitely be looking forward to that. But I think we can start. I'll just quickly, and I guess we want to get into some of our unless we got another topic we want to cover. Start getting into our kind of closing thoughts, but I can certainly start with some of the boxing. So last week you had Teofimo Lopez fought defended his championship on ESPN. Basically, went in there with essentially a sparring session. He got in there with a guy, very disciplined guy. He's a tough guy. He took a lot of shots. I think Teo threw more punches than he ever could in any of his fights. Coasted to an easy 12-round decision. But it was basically sparring work in there. But this weekend, all right. So again, fights to watch again on ESPN. You got Shakur Stevenson, who's actually fighting in Newark. I'm thinking maybe I should go to this fight, but I'm looking at the ringside seats for is still like the cheapest one is like $400, almost $500 for a ringside, which is shocking for me for a Shakur Stevenson fight because he's not the most exciting guy out there. But the only reason I'm mentioning that is because you could be possibly talking about a unification bout. Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson. Those guys are going to fight. We already talked about last week. You have Lomachenko fighting Tank Davis in November. So you can have a unification fight for all the marbles coming up at 135 early next year. And whoever comes out of those is going to be, I certainly think Tank is going to beat Lomachenko. I think it'll be an exciting fight, but I think Tank wins by knockout. But that's going to be a very exciting fight if they can pull that off. The only thing now is Shakur. This fight that's coming up, it's his last fight with Top Rank. So then he's going to be a commodity because you're going to have Top Rank trying to re-sign him. But then you're going to have like Eddie Hearn with the Zone. They're going to try to get him as well. So if he stays with Top Rank, I think the Teofimo Lopez fight, I think that's almost a shoo-in. If not that fight, there's another fighter from Ukrainian fighter who has another lightweight belt. So actually, he's the guy at 135. Teofimo's at 140. I still think it would be an exciting fight if those guys fought, but I think that the path would be, since the guy's also with ESPN, have Shakur unify the belts. Tank and Lomachenko get it on early next year. You get those guys on, and then the winner of that, whoever becomes undisputed, then you got Teofimo. By that time next year, you might have even Haney. He might be back in the. I know he's taking a respite right now, and then later in the year, even next year, you may even have Lion Garcia. He may be back in the ring at that particular time. So again, a lot of action at 135 and 140. Some good fights that I'll be watching and monitoring to see how that goes. But so far, everything is looking on the up and up. A lot of big cards coming up later this month in July. Boots Ennis, I believe, is also fighting in July, and that's going to be something that I'll be watching because, again, I still think him and Crawford, I still think that'd be a great fight because Crawford, I know he's fighting this guy over in Saudi coming up, but again, by himself, he's not a marketable fighter. But I would love to see him fight Boots Ennis, who I think is the next at 147. No, Mandrell disagrees with me there, but I think that's the next great fight to be made. I don't see him fighting Canelo Alvarez. That's a 20-pound. I mean, he's got skills, but I don't see that fight really coming off unless, Saudi's going to pay $200 million to see that fight. I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. But that's the kind of summary on the boxing beat. And then maybe so we could just kind of go around the room. Any sports, any other subtopics that you guys want to share and talk about that we haven't covered tonight, things that might be upcoming that we need to be mindful of. So again, I'll start with I'm gonna save Trey for last because Trey always sends a good message. So start with Dante, and we move to Shawnee, and then Trey. I think you can close us out.
I appreciate it because I know I got to cut out of here, but I want to say this just as far as as we're coming to farm football, and I want to say, obviously, I'm a Cowboys fan, and something that happened, I want to say a couple of things I'm upset about the ownership as far as the contracts being there and that looming over the team, and I'm tired of contract talk. Seems like it's always the Cowboys in an evolution state of that. But I'll say that Malik Hooker, the safety for the Cowboys, came on to Keyshawn Johnson's podcast and complained about Michael Parsons having a podcast. But before that, he did mention, he has a podcast. You can do whatever you want on your off day. But if the run game isn't right, where are your priorities? And it's just kind of like, so he's a veteran. You know how those things work. When you sign on to those deals, you're doing those shows weekly. You can't just do those shows every week that you win. Because we complain about Michael with that now. And I felt like he handled it poorly. That's something that should have been stayed behind closed doors directly to Micah. Micah even mentioned it in his response, which I didn't like him responding, but Micah's like 20 something years old, and and he's been in the league 4 years. So it's like at that point, you expect Micah to say that. You would want for him to say being the leader, and it's just kind of like I wish Micah would leave the leadership talk alone. Micah, I don't need you to be a leader. I just need you to go to 15 sacks. Play good against the run. Malik Hooker as a veteran, you don't need to say that. Camp is
Mm.
coming around. The people are going to just pump it up so much. I think the only reason that's saving him from it being buried is because the Mavericks are doing good at free agency locally, and then it's still a good ways from camp. Camp is a few weeks away. It'll be brought back up into camp, and that makes a built-in distraction when you got your quarterback, your receiver, and your star edge rusher looking for contracts. Your head coach is looking for a new contract in that last year of his deal, and you're coming off of three straight, 12-5 seasons, but you can't get the postseason success. I
Mm.
think little things like that, you got to think about the bigger picture and leave that type of stuff alone. And I hopefully, I don't think it's much of nothing, but you don't want it to be anything when it's been a bad off season as a Cowboy fan. No moves being made, and that's just something fresh that you just didn't get.
I hear you. I hear you. Thanks for sharing. Shawnee, what do you got?
Man, mine is basically all right,
Take care, man. We'll see you next week.
uh okay, I thought US had the hell, it was created here. Tackle football, American football.
Hmm.
Because you can't say if you say football overseas, they thought it's soccer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So now we got these little young bucks down here under 20. They see, they apparently getting beat in tackle football by countries I didn't even know that really recognize a sport. They got beat by Japan and then turn around in the bronze game and get beat by Serbia. I'm like,
Mm.
who the hell they? I'm trying to look at the roster now. It look like they have a lot of Texas roots. I'm like, this can't be Texas. Not a team performing like this. But I think the head coach from Texas. Then I noticed some other players that uh, many of them down in the Houston area and the Houston suburbs. But I'm like, man, what the hell? I didn't even know really because I didn't know that tackle football grew to like an international in that way.
Yeah.
But since okay, you think the U.S. we should have an advantage. I don't know any maybe a Mexican team. I know they have some players that ultimately come in the league or something like that. But those were the last two, especially Serbia. And you got
Yeah.
beat by Japan, but Serbia, I was like, man, they need to go ahead and cancel this under 20 football team because they
This
embarrassing.
man is promoting the brand globally. Globally, I'm
And
surprised you don't have a Samoan
they
team because
promoting
it seems
it
like every
for the
year.
beat.
I'm saying in the American football should be exploding in the Samoans because every year you got these guys coming out at all these different
Goodell don't
positions and
claim them.
whatnot.
Goodell
So,
don't claim them.
so I'm just saying,
He said that was sent over there by the what's this new the UFL.
yeah,
They
yeah,
the
but
UFL can have them.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Brother Trey, what you got for us? Close us out.
I mean, two things, man. I don't think we spoke about the WNBA, but shout out to Angel Reese, man, making an All-Star debut,
mm,
setting a rookie record for double doubles, man. So shout out to her and just her fight,
for real.
and shout out to Caitlin Clark again, All-Stars. I'm excited for the WNBA's future just because of those two, just breaking barriers and knocking down doors that we didn't see before. The All Star teams are going to play the Olympic team, so that's going to be interesting.
Right,
Uh,
right.
since Caitlin Clark is just an All Star, not a. What
Olympian, right.
else?
I had
The
something with the
summer league
WNBA that you
starting.
just brought up, Trey.
The summer league starts, I think, next week. The Olympics
Hmm.
start. It's a great time for everybody. Just get in shape, man. Exercise, eat better, eat more fruit, stay hydrated, man. It's hot all over the country, man. Drink water, drink water, drink water. Stay hydrated, man. Our health is important. And man, listen, man. The big three, man. The big three has been going on. I forgot all about the big
They're
three.
actually playing out here also. They're going to be playing at
Yeah,
Prudential
I went
Center
to
in
one of their games
Jersey
as
here.
well.
So you
Yeah,
need to
they're gonna be
check those
moving
guys out
around
too.
all summer, man. So
Right,
pay
right, right.
attention. I know they come into what is that? Nashville. I think uh, I'm not sure the closest spot. It's Cincinnati, something like that. But yeah, they got a nice setup, nice roster, some Hall of Fame coaches, man. So it's gonna be interesting, man. So there's plenty of shit to do. Y'all get outside.
Cool.
Everybody, 15 pounds by the end of the year, man. 15 pounds lighter, man. Healthy. Get your
So what's up?
prostates checked. Get your
Definitely.
I don't get everything checked, fellas. Get if you over 45, get that shit checked because we need to be here for the next 50, 60 years if possible.
Right. And if you're a woman also in that same thing, you need to be getting yourself checked out also. So again, women don't deny that yourself. But Shawnee, you want to circle back on something?
Yeah, real quick, 'cause I know because remember we was talking about we was really talking about the whole Caitlin Clark and all that. And I think I made a point about the whole rising tide rises all
This all
boats.
ships. Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So, and here's a perfect example of that. So, Trey just brought up the WNBA All Stars. Now, aside from Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, both of them, they the top, a part of the top five vote getters. So last year, Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, and Brittany Griner and Aaliyah Boston, in particular, Wilson, Stewart, and Boston. Wilson finished last year. She was a top vote getter. She had 95,000 votes. Now, this year, of course, Clark is a top vote getter and Reese is number five. But Wilson had last year had 95,860 votes. This year, the number two vote getter was Aaliyah Boston, most likely she's Clark's teammate. But Aaliyah Boston this year had 618,000 votes. Asia Wilson had just over 600,000, and Brianna Stewart had over 400,000. So that alone, compared to Asia Wilson being the number one vote getter last year with just under 100,000 votes, her votes grew up six times, up to 600,000. So this is what we kept saying. We was talking about Clark, and everybody was people I know hating or whatever. When we kept saying rising tide rises all boats. This is now you're getting this perfectly shows just the eyeballs that are now on the league thanks to say Clark and Reese. So there's no need to really hate on them or really put the two together, against each other. The whole league is benefiting from it, and this is just like a little example that's just easy to visualize. Just compared to your top vote getter last year, and all of a sudden she's number three on the list this year, but her votes and grew over 600,000 votes. So I just want to point that out because they it's definitely growing now. You on mute,
I'm
Trey?
muted. Just one final note before we get on out of here. And again, we talk about the Olympics in Jamaica, USA, but Jamaica, they're in the eye of the storm right now. There's a hurricane barrel that's
Oh
going through
yeah.
there now. Now I'm looking at this map that it seems like the trajectory it's on is going to cut through Mexico and it may hit southern Texas. Southeast corner of Texas as well. So Shawnee Dante, I don't know if you guys.
No,
I
I
I,
spoke
I
to
get
my
my I
folks
get my I get
yesterday.
my map is Dallas Fort Worth DFW area.
We
That is that further
we in the
north or is it?
middle, the upper
From the
middle
north.
portion of the state, like an hour, a little less than an hour to Oklahoma. So if the hurricane come this way, it's already broken up. But
Gotcha,
I'm
gotcha.
originally from the Houston area, so I just talked to my folks yesterday. I was like, hey, y'all keep an eye. If the storm gets stronger, which it normally does in the Gulf, it has a tendency to kind of curve up. So
Hmm.
Houston can be in its path. So I just keep an eye on that
Hmm.
because if you have to evacuate, make your way up here. But yeah,
Yeah.
we've been keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, so certainly for those in Houston, certainly be careful with that, and obviously that southern tip of Texas is always getting hit with something. So certainly, hopefully, folks will be safe over the next week or so as the storm breaks out. Hopefully, it subsides by then, so it won't do as much damage. But I still remember that storm from Houston that hit a few years ago, and that how that devastated the city as well. So, but for that, certainly I'm Mr. Bennett. He is Trey Ferg. He is Brother Shawnee, and Brother Dante was with us. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. Good discussion in the chat as well. Appreciate you guys coming through. Joshua Jones, as always, stirring it up in the chat. Thank you, sir, for coming through here. He finds his way to be in these faces, guys. But thank you guys for chiming in. We'll see you next week. So, again, take care. Have a great week. We'll see you next. And enjoy your holiday weekend, however you decide to celebrate. I know we had Juneteenth or whatever, so some brothers be like, nah, that was my Independence Day. But however you decide to spend the weekend, spend it with your families, whatever, and just enjoy yourselves. So hopefully we'll see you next week. You guys take care, and God bless.
Peace.